She walked into the luxury jet showroom with quiet confidence, polished, composed, and with a mind that had built one of the most powerful tech empires in the country. But to the staff at Skylux Aviation, all they saw was a black woman they assumed didn't belong. No one offered her a brochure. No one asked if she needed help. In fact, someone even pointed her toward the delivery entrance, assuming she was there to serve, not to spend. What they didn't know was that Vanessa Langston wasn't just there to buy a private jet. She was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company with enough influence to change lives in an instant. And when she was humiliated, underestimated, and flat out disrespected, she didn't yell, she didn't demand. She simply pulled out her phone, one message, one call. And by the time she walked out, entire careers were over, a new leader was in charge, and the dealership's future looked nothing like its past. This is the story of how a black woman turned rejection into revolution, and why you should never judge power by appearance. Vanessa Langston wasn't just any CEO. At 38, she had shattered ceilings that many never dared to reach. The daughter of a public school teacher and an auto mechanic, she'd built her billion-dollar tech empire EtherCore Technologies from the ground up. Her software solutions powered everything from city grids to global defense systems, and her company had just finalized a $2.4 billion merger deal that catapulted her into an entirely new league of corporate power. But Vanessa wasn't flashy. She was precise, private, strategic. And for the first time in years, she decided to reward herself not with another award plaque or an honorary degree, but with something personal, a jet. Not just for luxury, but for freedom, efficiency, independence. She and her longtime executive assistant, Devin, pulled into the private parking lot of Skylux Aviation, a sleek glass-walled dealership known for serving billionaires, royalty, and Hollywood A-listers, the kind of place where deals were sealed with vintage wine and handshakes over mahogany desks. Vanessa stepped out of the black Range Rover wearing a tailored navy suit that hugged her 6-foot frame with silent elegance. Her diamond stud earrings sparkled just enough to suggest wealth, but not enough to scream it. Her posture was upright, her stride graceful. Devin, who carried the leather folio with specs and preferred jet models, followed beside her with quiet admiration. But the moment they walked through the doors, the air seemed to shift. Behind a long marble reception counter, a sharply dressed salesman looked up from his tablet. His eyes flicked to Vanessa, then to Devin, and narrowed slightly. He leaned toward a colleague and said something in a low voice. Then he walked around the desk with a tight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Delivery entrances at the back. He muttered as he passed them. Vanessa paused, her brow rising. "Excuse me." He stopped mid-step, seemingly surprised she'd spoken. "Oh, you're with someone." He looked around as if expecting a high-profile client to appear behind her. Vanessa let the silence stretch just long enough to sting. Then she said calmly, "I'm the buyer." There was a flicker of discomfort in his eyes, quickly masked with a patronizing chuckle. "Right, of course. Look, sweetheart, jets here start at $30 million. Why don't I show you something a little more practical? We've got a used G280 that's more affordable." Devin stiffened, gripping the folio tighter. Vanessa's expression didn't change, though her eyes hardened just a touch. "Let's see what you think is practical," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "For someone who owns 4 satellites and a cybersecurity firm that protects half of Wall Street's assets." The salesman's fake smile faltered. Before he could recover, another man entered, middle-aged, white, wearing jeans and a Patagonia vest. Without hesitation, the staff swarmed him. Champagne was offered, hands were shaken, and he was ushered into the VIP showroom. Vanessa and Devin, meanwhile, were told to wait for the finance rep. No one asked for her name, no one offered her a seat. And still, no jet was shown. Devin leaned toward her. "Want me to call another dealer?" "No," Vanessa said quietly, already pulling out her phone. "I'm calling someone else." She tapped a few buttons and sent a message that simply read, "At Skylux, experiencing discrimination, time to clean house." Devin watched her, puzzled. "You're texting corporate." Vanessa smiled faintly, her eyes still fixed on the oblivious sales floor. Something like that. Truth be told, she wasn't just texting someone. She was contacting Camila Torres, CEO of Astrojet Holdings, the billion-dollar parent company that owned Skylux Aviation and over a dozen luxury aircraft dealerships around the globe. Vanessa and Camila had done business before, big business, the kind that moved headlines, and she knew one thing for sure: Camila didn't tolerate embarrassment. Especially not the kind that could go viral or cost her contracts. A few minutes later, one of the receptionists looked at her tablet, then froze. Her eyes darted to Vanessa and then to the back office. She whispered something to the floor manager, and suddenly, tension rippled through the showroom like a crack of lightning. The salesmen, who just moments ago were snickering and sipping lattes, now stood frozen. Why? Died. Vanessa put her phone away and folded her arms calmly. The storm was coming, and none of them were ready. Vanessa sat perfectly still in the plush leather chair near the corner of the Skylux showroom, her posture as elegant as ever, but her fingers moved quickly across her phone's screen. To anyone watching, it looked like she was casually scrolling through emails. In truth, she was composing a message with surgical precision. To Camila Torres, we need to talk. Your sales floor has a racism problem. I'll give you 10 minutes before I walk out, and possibly to the press. She hit send. Devon sat beside her, quietly seething. You good? He asked under his breath. Vanessa didn't look up. I'm great, she replied, eyes still on her phone. I just lit the fuse, and she had. On the 35th floor of a gleaming corporate skyscraper across town, Camila Torres, CEO of Astrojet Holdings, received the message instantly. She didn't need context. She knew Vanessa Langston's reputation. Calm, brilliant, measured. If Vanessa had used the word racism in a text, there was no question it was real, and it was serious. 10 minutes later, right on cue, a flurry of movement disrupted the calm hum of the Skylux showroom. From the glass staircase that led to the executive offices, a flustered figure appeared. Rick, the dealership's general manager. He was a stocky man in his late 50s, with a permanent sheen on his forehead and the look of someone who liked being in control, but had just lost it entirely. Ms. Langston, he exclaimed, rushing toward her. I had no idea you were here. If someone had told me, if I'd been notified, I would have come down immediately. Vanessa didn't rise. She simply looked at him, expression unreadable. Is that how you train your staff? She asked, her tone cool and composed. To decide who's worth assisting based on their skin color or their shoes, Rick's face blanched. No, no, no. This is absolutely not who we are. I apologize if someone gave you that impression. Oh, I didn't get an impression, Vanessa said. I got the full experience. I've been here for 30 minutes. Not one employee offered to help me. Not one asked if I had an appointment. They handed brochures and champagne to a YouTuber with sneakers and a snapback, but I, a multi-billion-dollar client, was told to wait for finance like I walked in asking for a loan. Rick looked like he wanted to sink into the marble floor. I can assure you this is an isolated. Don't, she cut him off. Don't use the word isolated. It's not isolated when your entire sales team treats people of color like we don't belong here. It's not isolated when the disrespect is so consistent. It feels choreographed. Devon shifted uncomfortably, sensing the heat of eyes watching from behind glass offices and showroom corners. Staff members were beginning to notice the shift in tone. Before Rick could muster another apology, Vanessa's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, smirked faintly, and answered, putting the call on speaker without breaking eye contact. Vanessa, came the clear, assertive voice of Camila Torres, CEO of Astrojet Holdings. I just finished reviewing the security footage from the last 40 minutes, everything, and I want you to know, this ends today. Rick's knees looked like they might give out. Wait, you called corporate. Vanessa didn't bother to respond to him directly. She spoke to Camila, calm and crisp. I'm not looking for an apology. I'm looking for accountability. I'm tired of walking into places like this and being measured by stereotypes instead of numbers. You'll have both, Camila said. I'm on my way there now. My legal and HR teams are 15 minutes out. We're conducting a full audit of the staff and operations. In the meantime, Vanessa, I want you to feel seen, heard, and respected." Vanessa glanced back at Rick, who was now visibly sweating. "Camilla," Vanessa said, pausing for a moment, "I'm still planning to purchase the Falcon X9. But depending on how this plays out, I may purchase something else too." Rick looked confused. What else is she buying? Vanessa finally stood, adjusted her suit jacket, and looked him dead in the eyes. "Possibly this entire dealership." Rick's mouth fell open. "You might want to gather your team," she added, voice steady. "They are about to get some very bad news." 15 minutes after Vanessa's phone call with Camilla Torres, the sleek quiet of Skylux Aviation was broken by the low hum of approaching engines. 3 matte, black SUV rolled onto the tarmac like Secret Service escorts, drawing every eye in the building. They came to a clean stop at the front entrance, and out stepped a team of sharply dressed professionals. Legal advisors, HR executives, and Camilla's own executive assistant. Their presence wasn't just commanding, it was chilling. The front desk receptionist, who had barely acknowledged Vanessa earlier, fumbled with her headset and stood up, trying to appear useful. Others on the sales floor stilled, suddenly remembering things to clean, adjust, or shuffle. Camilla wasn't with the group, yet. But her presence was already felt like a thundercloud hanging overhead. The assistant, a tall woman with a sleek ponytail and a no-nonsense expression, walked straight into the center of the showroom. She didn't raise her voice, but her words echoed with authority. "I need every employee in the main conference room, now," she said. "Except MS Langston. She will remain here." Vanessa didn't move. She didn't need to. The room moved around her. The staff members, who had just an hour ago whispered behind her back, reluctantly filed into the glass-walled meeting room. Some shot nervous glances at her. Others avoided her gaze entirely. Vanessa watched them with calm detachment, like a judge at a tribunal. Inside the conference room, the Astrojet legal team didn't waste time. One by one, employees were questioned. Footage was played, receipts reviewed. It wasn't just a review. It was an inquisition. The showroom's security footage, pulled from multiple angles, revealed the ugly truth in 4K clarity. There was video of 2 sales reps, laughing and pointing at Vanessa after she walked away from the front desk. One junior employee, fresh out of college, had turned to a colleague and asked, "Is she an Instagram model or someone's girlfriend?" Worse still, the footage caught one of the senior advisors, one of the highest paid consultants on the floor, leaning over to another and saying with a scoff, "They think they can buy jets now. They." That single word cut deeper than most slurs. Meanwhile, Vanessa was finally escorted to the hangar by a silent, red-faced junior associate. The doors rolled open to reveal the Falcon X9, a sleek, ultramodern jet gleaming under the bright ceiling lights. Its carbon, black exterior looked almost too perfect, like it had been rendered in a movie. Devon walked beside her, still reeling from the chaos erupting inside the dealership. "Now that's a jet," he whispered, clearly impressed. Vanessa walked slowly around the aircraft, running her hand along its side. The custom interior was everything she had requested weeks ago: touchscreen glass panels, soundproof cabin, biometric entry. Everything about it screamed innovation and efficiency. In some other reality, this might have been a dream moment. But not today. She turned to Devon and said, "Nice jet, but I think I'd rather buy the whole dealership." Devon blinked. "Wait, what? You're serious?" Vanessa smirked. "Let's just say Camilla and I are in talks." Devon laughed under his breath, but there was disbelief in his eyes. "You're not just trying to make a point, are you?" "No," Vanessa said, gazing at the Falcon X9. "I'm trying to make a change." Back inside, the conference room had become a war zone. Camilla had arrived in person, icy calm, and now stood at the head of the long glass table. "I'm not here to protect feelings," she said, her eyes scanning the room. "I'm here to protect this brand and our values, and what happened today has put all of it in jeopardy." A few staff tried to defend themselves. "It was a misunderstanding," one said. "I didn't know who she was," said another. Camilla held up a hand. "You didn't need to know who she was," she said coldly. "You just needed to treat her like a human being." 1 hour later, 5 employees were terminated on the spot, including the senior advisor who made the most offensive remark. Others were placed under review, their future hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Vanessa stood by the Falcon X9 as Devon returned from a brief call. "They've just issued a press release," he said. "Skylux is undergoing a leadership review. Camilla's putting you in charge of a new diversity oversight initiative, and she wants to talk to you about acquiring a majority share in this location." Vanessa smiled, not out of vengeance, but satisfaction. Not only would she get her jet, she'd also take the keys to the kingdom. And the runway was just beginning. By sunset, the once bustling Skylux aviation showroom had fallen eerily silent. Just hours earlier, the halls had echoed with laughter, idle chat, and the clink of espresso cups on glass desks. Now it was a different kind of quiet, the kind that comes after a storm clears, leaving wreckage behind. Camilla Torres had returned to the dealership in person. She wasn't here as a CEO looking to smooth things over. She was here as a storm bringer. Clad in an elegant gray suit and carrying a sleek black leather folder under her arm, she entered the conference room with a presence that made even the most senior employees shrink in their seats. Without preamble, she began calling names. "Jackson Miller," she said, her voice echoing through the tense room. The man who had first told Vanessa to try the delivery entrance looked up, pale as chalk. "You've violated our corporate ethics policy, disrespected a high-profile client, and exhibited behavior unbecoming of this brand," Camilla continued. "Your employment is terminated, effective immediately." A stunned hush followed, but Jackson began, his voice shaking. "I didn't know who she was." "That's exactly the problem," Camilla cut in coldly. "You didn't think she could be someone." Next, she turned to Rick, the dealership's long-time manager. His face was a mixture of embarrassment and disbelief. "Rick Thompson, as the general manager, you are responsible for maintaining a professional and equitable environment. Instead, you stood by and did nothing. You let bias go unchecked in your salesroom. You're dismissed, effective today." Rick stood slowly, still in shock. "You can't just—" "I can," Camilla said flatly. "And I did." One by one, she handed out termination letters to 3 more employees caught mocking clients based on race, attire, or perceived wealth. Each dismissal was calm, direct, and final. The room began to empty, desks were cleaned, security discreetly escorted people out, and whispers of disbelief floated in the heavy air. Vanessa remained in the hangar, watching the horizon from the jet steps, arms folded across her chest. She wasn't gloating, she was reflecting. This wasn't about revenge. It was about rewriting the rules. Camilla soon joined her, standing beside the Falcon X9. "I told you I'd make it right," she said quietly. "You didn't flinch," Vanessa replied. "I respect that." Camilla gave a small, firm nod. "I want Skylux to be the gold standard, not a playground for prejudice. People spend millions here. They deserve more than champagne and fake smiles. They deserve dignity." Vanessa smiled. "Then let's raise the bar." The next morning brought a new dawn, literally and symbolically. When Vanessa returned to Skylux, the atmosphere was different. The showroom had been cleaned both literally and culturally. The energy felt focused, honest. Fresh flowers sat in vases near the reception desk. Framed photos of diverse clients were newly mounted on the walls. Every employee stood taller, sharper, more alert, not out of fear, but respect. At the reception desk stood Tasha Green, a woman in her early 40s with natural curls, bold red lipstick, and the quiet fire of a born leader. Formerly head of business development at AstraJet, she had been flown in overnight as Skylux's new acting manager. Tasha smiled as soon as Vanessa stepped through the glass doors. "MS Langston," she said warmly, extending her hand. "Welcome back. Your Falcon X9 is prepped, fully fueled, and ready to take off. Would you like to take her for a spin?" Vanessa shook her hand and laughed softly. "Tempting, but first let's talk numbers." Tasha nodded. "Already have your file ready in the new conference room, and yes, it's been sanitized of all bias and bad behavior." As they walked side by side, Devon followed behind them, still trying to catch up with the whirlwind the last 24 hours had become. "You know," he muttered, "I thought this trip would just be about buying a jet. Now we're basically restructuring the aviation industry. Vanessa glanced over her shoulder with a wink. Why stop at the skies when the ground still needs fixing? Inside the new look conference room, contracts were laid out. Not just for the Falcon X9, but for something more. A percentage of Skylux's ownership. A partnership with AstraJet to implement bias training and new hiring standards across all dealerships. A seat on their advisory board for Vanessa herself. She didn't just walk away with a jet, she walked away with power. And this time, everyone watched her do it. 2 weeks later, the world woke up to a headline that sent shockwaves through the corporate elite and aviation industry alike. Vanessa Langston acquires majority stake in Skylux Aviation. Plans. Diversity overhaul. A Bloomberg business. The story spread like wildfire. From Forbes to CNN, Twitter to TikTok, news of Vanessa's bold move dominated timelines and news tickers. People weren't just talking about the jet anymore. They were talking about the woman who walked into a hostile showroom and walked out owning it. Photos circulated. Vanessa standing beside her sleek Falcon X9, now bearing the name Phoenix One, painted in elegant gold script near the cockpit. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Out of disrespect and arrogance had risen something unstoppable. And Vanessa hadn't just purchased a plane. She had rewritten the rules of the game. Alongside her acquisition of a controlling stake in Skylux Aviation, Vanessa issued a powerful directive. She immediately fired the remaining leadership who had stood silent in the face of racial bias. In their place, she installed a new board, diverse, dynamic, and forward-thinking. Among them, women, people of color, veterans, and those with non-traditional business backgrounds. But Vanessa didn't stop there. She launched the Ascend Initiative, a bold nationwide program dedicated to recruiting and training underrepresented youth in the aviation industry. The initiative would offer scholarships, mentorship, and internships focused on aircraft sales, aerospace engineering, and aviation finance. Too often, our people are told we don't belong in high places literally and figuratively. Vanessa said in a public statement, "Well, now we're building our own runways." Her mission video went viral within hours. Standing on the tarmac with Phoenix One gleaming behind her, Vanessa addressed the camera with a quiet, commanding energy. "I didn't walk into that dealership to make a statement. I walked in to buy a jet. But when people show you what they think you're worth, you have two choices, shrink or shift the whole room. I chose the second. Millions watched, and millions were moved. Celebrities reposted the video. Young entrepreneurs called her a role model. Even longtime executives, many of whom had dismissed her before, now quoted her in board meetings. Inside Skylux, change was visible. The lobby, once cold and sterile, now featured portraits of diverse pioneers in aviation history. Clients were greeted with genuine warmth, not assessments based on their appearance. Sales teams were retrained, and community outreach centers were launched in cities like Atlanta, Detroit, and Oakland. Vanessa wasn't just leading a company, she was reshaping a legacy. Back on the Skylux runway, the day had finally come. Her custom Falcon X9 Phoenix One was ready for its maiden voyage. As Vanessa boarded, she wore a tailored navy blue flight jacket with her initials embossed on the sleeve. Devon, loyal as ever, trailed behind her with a grin plastered across his face. The interior of the jet was nothing short of breathtaking, sleek leather seats, soft lighting, panoramic digital windows, and even a small lounge area where business could be done above the clouds. As the engines whirred to life and the stairs pulled away, Devon slid into the seat beside her. "Well," he said, looking around in awe. From disrespected customer to queen of the skies, not bad for a 2-week turnaround. Vanessa smirked, her fingers gently brushing the armrest. "This isn't the end," she said. "It's the start of a whole new flight plan." As the jet taxied onto the runway, Devon turned toward her. "Where to, boss?" Vanessa looked out the window, where the world was bathed in gold by the setting sun. Cities stretched across the map like endless opportunities. She smiled, her eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. "Anywhere I want. And with that, Phoenix One lifted off the ground, sleek, powerful, unstoppable, just like the woman who owned it. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories that challenge the status quo. Share this with someone who needs a reminder. When you know your worth, you don't ask for a seat, you build your own jet. Ready for takeoff, let's fly higher together. Vanessa Langston's story wasn't just about buying a jet. It was about breaking barriers in spaces not built to welcome her. She didn't argue, she didn't yell, she let the truth speak and then took decisive action. By turning a moment of disrespect into a movement for accountability, she showed the world that power doesn't need to shout. It moves with purpose. Vanessa didn't just fly above the hate. She restructured the runway for those coming after her. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Hidden Realities, where we uncover powerful, untold stories that challenge injustice and uplift real strength. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in Vanessa's shoes? And remember, sometimes the quietest people in the room are the ones who own the whole building. See you in the next story.